So why do so many people first experience depression during their teenage years? For a long time, the answer was always about social pressure, hormones, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's part of it. But what's really exciting is that new science is showing us something much deeper, something biological. So in this explainer, we're going to go right inside the adolescent brain to see what's really going on.
And first, let's just talk about the sheer scale of this. Get this, the latest research shows that roughly 1 in 4 people will deal with depression during that really critical time between being a kid and becoming an adult. So we're not talking about something rare here. This is a massive health challenge for this generation.
Okay, so that brings us to the big question, right? Why this age? What is it about being a teenager that makes the brain so vulnerable? The answers, as it turns out, are literally wired into the brain's development.
And this is so important. The depression that starts in the teen years is not just teen angst. We have to get that idea out of our heads. Studies are really clear on this. It's often tied to more severe symptoms, it's more likely to come back later in life, and it just behaves differently than depression that starts when you're an adult. So figuring out where it comes from is absolutely crucial.
So, to find those origins, where do we look? Well, we've got to look at the brain itself. You see, the teenage brain, it's not just a big kid's brain or a mini adult brain. Nope, it's more like a massive construction zone. Everything is being reorganized, rewired, and rebuilt. And all that intense change, that's what creates this very specific window of vulnerability.
And this right here really gets to the heart of the problem. Scientists have a term for it, developmental mismatch. And it's actually a pretty simple idea when you break it down. Think of your brain like a car. The engine, that's your limbic system, the part that runs on emotion, reward, all that powerful stuff. It gets a massive upgrade, like a supercharger, right at the start of adolescence. But the brakes, that's your prefrontal cortex, the part for planning and self-control. Well, that part is still being built. It's not going to be fully installed until your mid-20s. So you end up with this high-powered engine and kind of shoddy brakes. It creates this natural but pretty risky imbalance.
So how can we actually see this imbalance happening? Well, this is where the cool tech comes in. Scientists can now use these incredibly powerful imaging tools to look inside the living brain and map out all its communication pathways. They're basically playing detective, looking for the specific clues in the wiring that separate a typically developing brain from a brain dealing with depression.
And their main tool for this is something called resting state fMRI. The easiest way to think about it is like this. It lets scientists eavesdrop on the brain's private conversations. A person just lies down in a scanner, not doing any specific task, just letting their mind wander, and while they do that, the scanner tracks where the blood is flowing. This shows which parts of the brain are active, and, more importantly, which parts are chatting with each other when the brain is just at rest. And what they're measuring with this is a concept called functional connectivity, or FC. It's basically a map of the brain's communication network. So it's not just about seeing which lights are on in the brain, but about seeing how strong the telephone lines are between different areas. Is the connection between the emotion center and the control center a crystal clear fiber optic line, or is it more like a weak, staticky dial-up signal?
Okay, so scientists have these incredible tools. What have they actually found? The big reveal is that the brain's wiring diagram, it looks consistently different in teenagers with depression. They've been able to pinpoint specific changes in how the brain's major networks are talking to each other.
Now, to really get what they found, you need to meet the 3 main players in this story, the 3 core brain networks. First up, you've got the default mode network, or DMN. Think of this as your brain's daydreaming network. It's active when you're thinking about yourself, your past, the future. Then there's the salience network. This is your threat detector. It's always scanning your inner and outer world, trying to figure out what's important enough to pay attention to. And finally, you have the central executive network. This is the CEO of your brain. It's in charge of problem solving, focus, making decisions. Now, when everything is working well, these 3 networks are in a beautiful, delicate balance. But in the depressed adolescent brain, that balance gets thrown way off. What the research shows again and again is that the default mode network, that self-reflection network, becomes hyper-connected with itself. It's like it turns into an echo chamber. The internal voice gets stuck on a negative loop, and that's where we see rumination, that feeling of being trapped in your own head, going over and over the same negative thoughts. And at the exact same time, the connections between this inward-looking network and the outside world-focused networks get weaker. So the brain literally gets stuck inside itself and has a really hard time shifting its attention back out.
And look, this isn't just a one-off finding from a single study.
We're talking about converging evidence from labs all over the world, all pointing to the same thing. They see changes in the amygdala, and that lines up perfectly with heightened emotional reactivity. They see weaker connections to the prefrontal cortex, and that maps directly onto the struggle to regulate those emotions. It's incredible, really. For the first time, we can draw a direct line from the subjective feeling of depression to something we can actually measure in the brain's wiring.
So this is obviously more than just fascinating science, right? This is a really big deal. This research is paving the way for a complete shift in how we think about, diagnose, and even treat depression. It's moving us away from just talking about symptoms and firmly into understanding it as a disorder of the brain's circuits. So why does this matter so much? Well, for a few huge reasons. First, it gives a real biological explanation for what people are feeling. That is so powerful for fighting stigma, because it makes it clear this isn't a weakness or a character flaw. It's a problem with brain circuitry. Second, it gives us actual physical targets for new, more precise treatments. And maybe the most exciting part, it could help us predict who's most at risk, maybe even before they ever show a single symptom.
Okay, let me give you a really concrete example of where this is all going. There's a treatment called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. It's a perfect example of this research in action. A doctor can use a brain scan to find one of those underactive control regions, like that prefrontal cortex we talked about. Then, using focused magnetic pulses, totally non-invasively, they can stimulate those specific neurons. It's like they're helping to retune the circuit, strengthening that weak connection between the brain's control center and its emotion center, session by session.
What all of this is pointing to is a pretty radical shift away from the old one-size-fits-all approach. We're heading toward a future of truly personalized mental health care. Imagine a world where a brain scan could help a doctor figure out the best treatment for you and your specific brain wiring, whether that's a certain type of therapy, a specific medication, or a treatment like TMS. And really, as this quote makes clear, the ultimate goal here, the real holy grail, is prevention. If we can spot these vulnerabilities in the brain's wiring early on, we can step in and help before a person ever experiences a full depressive episode. We could develop strategies to strengthen those brain circuits and build resilience right from the start.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? We are absolutely entering a new era. An era where understanding mental health means understanding the brain's communication network. And that final question is really the whole point. The idea that one day, a personalized map of your brain's circuits could guide your mental health care, that's not science fiction anymore. That is the very real future that this incredible research is building right now.